welcome to our Friday Independent Living Skills Discussion. For those who have not met me yet, my name is Catherine. I am a white female. I have shoulder length black hair that I'm wearing down today. I have a black top with white polka dots and a olive green sweater on. My preferred pronouns are she, her. We'd like to welcome Katrina Boyer. And we'd like to thank our friends from Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities for being with us today for another installment in our Dobbs series. This has been a fantastic series that has spanned the last few months with a different topic every month. Today, we are going to be talking about spending plans for fixed incomes. But before we jump into our presentation for today, a few logistics. We are recording today's session and we will post the recording and the links to our LVCIL YouTube channel. If you need the link for that, let me know and I can get that to you. We are inviting our attendees to turn their cameras on if they feel comfortable. It just makes it feel like we're together a little bit more. But we do ask that you keep your microphone muted. If you're not talking, it helps with the clarity of our recording. For those who need captions, they are available through Zoom. You can click on the CC live transcript, or it might say show captions, depends on which version of Zoom you have. And turn those on. You can adjust the size for your needs. And then chat is available today for posting questions, reactions, or comments throughout the presentation. We will take time for questions at the end of the presentation. So please know that if you put something in chat, we will address it. It might just have to wait a little bit. And we do invite you to unmute and ask your question at the end as well. So I'd like to introduce you to our presenter today. Katrina Boyer has served with the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities since 2004. She has done outreach for the agency since 2010. And in 2018 became the Investor Education Coordinator. Katrina educates thousands of individuals about the work of the agency, as well as helping Pennsylvanians make wise and safe financial investments. And so again, we'd like to thank Katrina for being here, and I will turn it over to you, Katrina.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us today. It's my pleasure to be chatting with you today about spending plans and how they can be a roadmap to financial stability. According to Investopedia, a personal spending plan will help you determine your cash flow. It can help you understand how you earn and spend your money. I know for me, when I start to think about how I spend my money, it sort of becomes this big messy space. So doing the things that I outlined today can be very helpful. When we pair that plan with a financial goals worksheet, we can use it to create that roadmap for ourselves so that we can monitor how we spend and how we can reach our financial goals. So today we're going to be covering goal setting. We'll talk about cash flow and tracking. Then we'll talk about creating that spending plan, adjusting when we need to, and investigating before we decide to invest our hard-earned money. So before we get started, I'd like to just outline how we can set some SMART goals. As SMART goals, that is an acronym. For example, if you say I want to save $600 in 6 months so that I can buy that big screen TV that I want, that's a SMART goal. And that's because it's S stands for SMART. It's measurable. That's $600 that I want to save. It's achievable because in 6 months I would need to save $100 a month. It's relevant because I want that big screen TV, and time bound because I want it in 6 months. That would be a great way for me to watch the parades for the holidays, right? So that's how we start to think about SMART goals. But what are your goals? Is it we've got some short-term goals. Maybe we want to take a vacation. Maybe we want to get that big screen TV, or maybe we have a mid-range goal. Maybe in a year we'd like to take a vacation, or a long-term goal. Maybe we want to retire or plan for our last wishes. Those are examples of different long, short, and mid-term goals. Each of us may have our own goals that we need to be concerned about. So as we start to think about our cash flow, income, and expenses, the money that we have coming in may be from job, it may be from a retirement, it could be investment income, maybe you're getting Social Security or a pension. Any money that you have that can be considered regular and dependable is money that you want to count as income when you're starting to think about your spending plans. Our expenses include money that we're spending to survive. Now that's going to be our housing. It's going to cover maybe our car payment, at least our car insurance if we have our own transportation, insurance, savings, and then we've got some variables that could fluctuate from time to time based upon how much we use. So utilities, groceries, and entertainment and credit card debt come into that category of variable. But sometimes, if we think about it, a fixed expense could actually become variable if perhaps we need to pay down, we can maybe find more reasonable housing, or maybe we want to downsize from a home that's much bigger to something that's more affordable. Then that could become a more reasonably priced fixed expense where we wouldn't necessarily have taxes to pay and those types of things that can help it become more fixed rather than variable. We may want to shop around for insurance that can help us save some money, and maybe we need to take public transportation instead of owning our own vehicle. Those are all ways that we can sort of save some money over the long term. But I always think it's a good idea to start by tracking our spending. I did this exercise myself when I was first creating the spending plans series, and I have to tell you that I was absolutely amazed when I tracked every penny that I spent for 30 days. So you can use a notebook. I can actually send these, I can send this document to your sponsor who is hosting us today. We can send that information. But basically what you want to do is you want to record every penny that you spend for 30 days. That includes when you stop at the gas station and you run in and go to the restroom and you decide you need those chips. I know for me, I found that I was spending an astronomical amount of money when I was stopping at the gas station. I travel for work frequently, and every time I had to stop for gas or to use the restroom, I was spending anywhere from $7 to $10 or $12 at the gas station. And when I added that together, I was absolutely astounded at how much money I was spending that I didn't necessarily have to spend. So that was sort of an aha moment. Once we have that spending log, we want to assign a budget category, and that will help us to understand where all of our money goes. What I found is I was spending a whole lot of money at the convenience store when I could have been spending a whole lot less by buying the same things at the grocery store instead of the convenience store. At the end of the 30 days, when you think about what might be for you, are you going to be surprised at what money you spend? Did you spend more or less than you expected? I know for me, I spent an incredible amount more than I did, which helped me to refocus how I was spending. And then, are there changes that you could make? I certainly found that I could make changes. So now that you know where your money's going, you want to start thinking about creating that spending plan, and you can record your income, assign how much money you're going to spend. I'm only going to spend, say, $300 at the grocery store. every month on groceries. You can use, there are tons of different ways that you can do that. There's software you can use, there are applications that can be downloaded. I know my son or my daughter and son-in-law use an application that they have their spending plan together that they can see, and they can hold each other accountable. It's a great way for them to be able to help reach some of their spending goals. So if you decide to use paper, here's an example of a spending plan from the Federal Trade Commission that is very easy to use, and I can send this as well. I can email this so that you can list all of your monthly expenses. You can use the information from your spending tracker so that you can know how much you're spending at different places. And then this gives you the opportunity to make a plan on how you're going to spend all of your money. Having that plan can really help you to be accountable and remember that perhaps your goal is, if we go back to that SMART goal that we set for the $600 to buy the big screen TV, being able to put in the expenses that we want to save, that $100 a month, that helps it to become real when we put it in the plan and we make it happen. At the end of the month, you might want to check how you did. There are some plans that actually have two different columns, one that has what you budgeted, and then the other allows you to put in what you actually spent. That can be really helpful because you can see how close you came to actually spending what you intended to spend. And the goal for that would actually be that you would come out that you spent exactly what you planned to spend. If you find that you're spending more in certain categories, you might need to adjust that spending. You might need to adjust and allow more money for that category, or you may need to adjust how much money you're spending. But this is a really good way to be able to see exactly what money you have coming in and how you did spending it. But sometimes our earnings are not quite as much as our expenses, and there are things that we have to do in order to adjust for that. So maybe we can increase our income. We can get a part-time job, or we can, maybe if there's a hobby that you like to do, you can turn that hobby into a money-making business. I know a lot of people will take a woodworking craft that they like to do and take it to craft shows so that they can sell what they like to make and make some extra cash to help with plugging in some of those spending gaps that you may have. Those are a great way to increase our income. We might want to change how our investment accounts are paying out. If you have investment accounts, perhaps you can increase how much they're paying every month. If you have items in your garage or your basement that you don't use anymore, you can sell those items. That can increase your income so that you can pay off some debt, so that you can adjust your budget, or you can sell things slowly and use them to plug some of those spending gaps so that you have that income coming in when you're living your monthly budget, your monthly spending plan. Now, you can also think about reducing some expenses. What are some things that you might be able to do to cut housing costs? Well, you might want to consider downsizing. If you're living in the house that you've lived in, that you raise the kids in, it may be more than you need now. Perhaps there are some spending leaks that you have. I know for me, like I said, I was able to change the way I spent some money, and I spent a whole lot less on groceries when I started to buy my snacks at the grocery store rather than the convenience store. Taking advantage of senior discounts is also another great way that we can sort of reduce expenses if you're eligible age-wise. Maybe instead of going out to dinner and a movie, you could have cook dinner at home or have a frozen pizza and watch a Redbox movie. That can really cut some expenses. Using public transportation as opposed to making a car payment and paying car insurance and maintenance and gas. Fuel is, a big expense. So using public transportation can be a way that we can reduce some expenses. Those are all great ways to help make that budget, that spending plan more balanced for us. If you receive Medicare, understand exactly what you're getting into and take advantage of your ability to change coverage if you need to. Again, plugging some coverage gaps. If you can get a better plan to pay for prescriptions, a prescription benefit plan might help with having less money going out so that you have more money to pay for some of those other things. Making sure that you're taking the most advantage of your health insurance is a huge way to help make that better. Because at the end of the day, we have to have the basics. We need food and shelter. We have to have we have to have clothing, and we have to be able to get to our appointments. But the things that we want go beyond the basic needs, and they increase our quality of life. So just because we have to have transportation doesn't mean that we have to have the sporty the sporty go fast car that you see here. But that doesn't mean that you're making bad decisions if that's what you want. It's all a matter of what our preferences are and what we can afford. But let's think about if we were to start saving and adding savings to our spending plan. If you could save $20 a week, in a year you would have saved $1,000. In 5 years, you would have saved $5,000. What could you do in that time frame with that kind of money? In a year, you could have a nice weekend getaway if you could just save that $20 a week. Now, if you could take $30 a month and invest it into an investment account of some sort, even with a modest interest rate of 5% return on your investment, after 10 years, you'd have $4,000 saved. That's according to investor.gov. So you can add a line item to your spending plan for investing. You can set it so that it automatically deposits into a separate account so that it's not so easy for you to get to. And then as you make changes to your spending habits or you have more income, you can increase that. And then you can see really how those investments and your savings can grow. And the reality is that some investment accounts can be opened with as little as $5. So as long as you agree to make an automatic deposit, you can open those up. And so remember that good things take time, and it is important that that you are prepared for that. So if you're thinking about opening an investment account, remember that there are professionals out there who are available and willing to help you. You can do an online broker-dealer for anyone who wants to manage their own portfolio. They want to do their homework and they just want to be able to buy and sell stocks or investments. That's one way for you to be able to do that. A robo-advisor is someone who's going to, it's computer done, and you answer a few questions and the robo-advisor will do the work. So again, you set up that automatic deposit of, $5, $20, whatever you can do, and you can watch your investments begin to grow. Now, if you've got someone who you want to help you with reaching your long-term financial goals, you may want a managed account with a traditional advisor. They can help you with just more than just your investing goals. They're going to help you with maybe some budgeting, helping you reach those long-term goals. But remember that if you're dealing with someone like that, the fees that you're going to have for those individuals are going to be higher than what you would have had with the robo-advisor or the broker-dealer. Each of the three professionals that I've mentioned are going to charge a fee, so it's important to know what those fees are. Before you hire any of these professionals, you want to verify that they're licensed. You want to make sure that you understand the types of investments that they offer. You want to review the relationship summary, which basically tells you exactly what to expect from that professional. It will outline how much the costs are, and it will tell you about any potential conflicts of interest. And then ask questions. Make sure that you understand what that person is doing for you. The different types of professionals we just talked about. You've got a registered representative, a financial consultant, a financial advisor, or investment consultant. Those are all names for broker or broker dealers. But I mentioned that you want to make sure that you investigate your professional before you invest. You can go to brokercheck.finra.org, which is the website that you see here. You can find out what they can and can't do. It gives you their whole work history, even before they were investment professionals, and you can see if they've had complaints filed or had actions taken against them, which can be very helpful when you're making the decision for yourself. According to Investopedia, asset allocation is an investment technique that balances how much risk you want to take and creates diversification by dividing your investments across the different categories that we have discussed. We did not discuss investment categories, so I don't know why that slide is there. Asset allocation. So when you think about how to make your investments, you don't want to rely solely on paperwork on computers. Do some research on your own, determine what your long and short-term goals are, and remember that investing time is your best friend. For someone who is younger, being invested in the stock market, here's an example of how someone may choose to have their assets allocated. Someone who's young in their 20s may put all of their investments into one place, or most of their investments into stocks, with a little bit in bonds. Bonds are considered much less risky than stocks. So someone who's younger and has time to recover may want to invest more heavily in stocks. But as you get older, you're going to want to maybe consider switching and having less in stocks and more in bonds that are considered safer. But the most important thing we want to remember is that having an emergency fund to help us so that we're prepared for the unexpected, so that we don't have to get into our investments, can be very helpful. An emergency savings fund can help you with unexpected travel expenses. If you have a sudden illness or an emergency bill, maybe a family member becomes ill and you need to travel, you know, being able to do that when you need to is very helpful. Just remember that emergency funds need to be readily accessible. So having them invested in a fund or a stock market, or even a certificate of deposit isn't always the best idea, because you may have to pay penalties in order to access it, and you want to be able to get to that emergency money right away. As you progress and you start to make creating that spending plan a habit, you may want to think about adding more money to that emergency account. Many people suggest that you have at least 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses included in your emergency account. And then maybe once you've had some months worth of that spending plan under your belt, maybe you want to start changing some of those goals. Maybe you want to add a new goal. or reevaluate your priorities so that you're better equipped to do the things that are most important to you at the right times. But a spending plan isn't worth a lot if you don't go back and review it, because our goals change. I know for me as a grandparent, my priorities have changed from wanting to take big vacations to being able to spend more quality time with my grandchildren. But that doesn't necessarily mean I need less money. If anything, the reality is that being able to spend that quality time with my grandchildren one-on-one ends up costing more. So we want to make sure that we are monitoring consistently and adjusting our spending as we need to. So we've gone pretty quickly through a lot of information. You can get more information on how to get out of debt at consumer.ftc.gov. And I can send today's PowerPoint with the different links to the host this morning. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has a great toolkit that you can use that's all about budgeting. And then if you're considering hiring an investment professional, again, that brokercheck.finra.org is a great way to learn more about the investment professional that you're considering. At this time, I'd like to open it up for any questions that there may be. I don't see any in the chat, but if anyone has any questions, now is a great time to unmute yourself or type the questions in the chat.
Thank you so much, Katrina. That was a great presentation, a lot of good information.
And if anyone has questions after the fact, George Dillman, who was originally scheduled to do today's presentation, his contact information is here.
Wonderful. And I'll put that in the chat in case anybody needs that.
So there is a question about whether or not it's smart to invest in stock when you're trying to budget. So I love that question because the reality is that we should all have a budget. We should all have a spending plan, no matter where we are income wise. I think that starting to think about investing and saving for long-term financial goals, no matter where you are in your budgeting process or your spending plan process, is a good idea. Because even if you just take $5 or $10 and put it into a savings account so that you can have that emergency fund and then you can start investing, I think it's a great idea. I don't necessarily I think so often we get stuck in the mindset that my income is limited, so therefore I can't afford to do this. But the reality is, I'm a firm believer that how can we afford not to? Again, even if it's $5 a month, it's something, because hopefully our financial situation changes and we're not in that place forever. And I don't necessarily mean, suddenly you're going to make $20,000 more a year. The reality is that things change and maybe, we start spending a little less here and there, and we change the way we're doing life, and then we're able to take that $5 a month or $10 a month and start to put it in some place that's going to help us with our long-term financial goals. But that's a great question. I appreciate that.
I'm not seeing any more questions in chat.
Okay.
All right. Well, then I guess we will wrap up today if there are no more questions. But like I said, if you do have questions afterwards, as Katrina said, you can contact George and his email address is in the chat for you. Or you can always reach out to me. I have it and I can get that to you. Again, just want to thank Katrina and everybody really at Department of Banking Securities for all the wonderful presentations we've had so far in this series. And invite you to come back next Friday for Fair Housing and Disabilities with Pennsylvania Human Rights Commission.
And I put my email address too in the chat in case anyone wants to reach out to me.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All
It
right.
was a
Well,
pleasure chatting with all of you.
same. Like I said, have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you in the future.